Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Emily Macmillan, and I'm the Content Manager here at Perkbox, and we're delighted to be hosting our expert webinar speakers for today, Dawn Wild, Human Resources Director, and Andrew Hyland, Recruitment and Resources Manager at Macmillan Cancer Support. In case anyone is not familiar with Perkbox, we're the UK's fastest growing employee engagement platform. We believe that happy and engaged employees perform better and stick around for longer. To that end, we've created a platform that offers teams financial, emotional, and physical wellness perks to help build happier, more productive company cultures. We've invited Dawn and Andrew here today to discuss mastering talent acquisition, a strategy that will separate your business from outdated and clunky recruitment processes to help you attract the very best talent. Both Dawn and Andrew have been instrumental in overhauling Macmillan's recruitment process and changing its mindset towards employee recognition in a time of rapid growth. Together, they'll be exploring in this webinar how they ditched their outsourced recruitment process in favour of an in-house tailored approach, what steps you need to take to abide to the talent acquisition philosophy, and how to attract and retain the very best talent in a competitive market. So before we begin, some housekeeping rules from my side. This webinar will be an interactive session, so please use the chat function as we go along or the question box to submit questions. Lastly, this webinar will be recorded and available on demand. We'll be sending out the recordings within the next few days. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dawn and Andrew. Guys, over to you.
Thanks very much, and thank you very much for having us on your webinar today. So before I talk about talent at Macmillan, I wanted to say a few words about Macmillan. Hopefully most of you will be aware of who we are, whether that's through direct contact, whether you've seen our TV adverts, or even if you're planning to eat a lot of cake at our world's biggest coffee morning in the morning. But we're a team of supporters, volunteers, staff, campaigners, health and social care professionals, and fundraisers, and everything about us, our purpose, brand, history, as well as the way we're structured, ensures that whenever anyone thinks of cancer support, they automatically think of Macmillan. And we want everyone with cancer to know that we're there to support them from the moment they're diagnosed by treating them as a person with a life, not just a disease. And we'll make sure that they're prepared for whatever comes next. So it would be remiss of me with having you all in a virtual room to offer support to any employers that are out there with us today. And as you can see on the slide, it shows you a couple of opportunities to connect with us, that we give some free support to professionals and to employers to a service called Macmillan at Work, where we come in to help employers and HR teams to train, support and build the knowledge of your teams with people affected by cancer in your workforces. So hopefully you might have experienced that already, or if not, feel free to make contact and the team would come out to you and your offices to help with that support. And then lastly, just to touch on our plan and what our mission is for 2018, you're more than welcome to download and review our annual report for last year. But the headlines really were around, we spent 192 million to improve the lives of people living with cancer, a huge investment. We had in 2017, we had 5,700 Macmillan nurses in post, 600 more than the previous year in 2016. Our support line service answered over 152,000 calls, emails and letters, and we raised over £247 million, so which again was 2.8 million more than the previous year. So currently there are approximately 2.5 million people living with cancer, and it's set to grow by 5.3 million by 2040. So you can really see our mission that's ahead of us. And I know a lot of you on the call or the webinar today are a huge support network for us and even volunteers. So I wanted to say a personal thank you on behalf of Macmillan's. So what I'd like to do now is just start to talk about our story that we have to share with you today around talent acquisition and talent philosophy. It's in two parts. It's in two lenses. So Andrew's going to take us through our story around how he's transformed our recruitment approach here at Macmillan. And it's an award-winning, even though he won't say this himself, he's far too humble. It's an award-winning service. And he's going to also describe how he's used data and analytics to attract our talent and the steps we took to embed this in the organisation. Then I'm going to come back at the end of the call and start to talk about our talent philosophy, the other end of the cycle. And I'm hoping you're going to be able to share your own reflections and your own learnings for us, so I can borrow with pride any good steers that you may have on a talent strategy that we're just about to embed on ourselves. So Andrew, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. Good afternoon, everyone. What I'd like to do is kind of paint you a picture of before and after, what it was like at Macmillan as I joined around about 7 years ago now. I might just say 7 of the best years of my career so far. That slide, that first slide I'm showing you at the moment is very much kind of where Macmillan was in terms of the service that we provided to candidates and to some of the sourcing techniques and things that were happening at the time. So from 2008, Macmillan had an RPO in place. That RPO had been set up to handle end-to-end recruitment at Macmillan. At the time, it had been set up for around about 200 vacancies a year. When I got here and started to look at volumes, it was more like 400 a year. And what was really evident was that the service just really couldn't cope with it. There was a shortage of good candidates. The reputation of the service itself wasn't great in front of candidates. That is a Glassdoor image that you can see there about somebody who'd been through some of our process. But some of the bigger issues were the brand. We've got an absolutely fantastic brand, probably one of the best brands in the sector, but it wasn't being used, leveraged. It was quite diluted in terms of its contacts with people. Our initial contact with candidates was not a real Macmillan experience. When I came here, we used to talk about Macmillan moments, and one of those key moments was meeting candidates for the very first time and how that should look. But actually, it wasn't that great. Candidates less than inspired through the process, no real metrics to evaluate. Quality of hire was a big question mark. No metrics to know what was working, no time to hire, which was quite anecdotal, and managers were totally distanced from the process. So people less than inspired, and we received significant volumes of complaints, that being just one of them that you see on the screen there. So it was a big mission, quite a daunting mission as well, but a real challenge, and who doesn't like a challenge? So prior to the model change, advice to hiring managers about sourcing techniques and where we might go, what is the best place to put a role, how might we do that, was almost impossible to influence because we just didn't understand how media was working for us. Hiring manager would normally dictate where the job went, usually because in their view, everyone in the industry looked there, or we've always advertised our roles there. So customer practice more than anything else. So no real evidence to counter that all roles tended to follow the same route with a standard listing on The Guardian and the charity job. That was it. So we needed to do some things and put some things in place to kind of improve that picture. So one of those key things was a new system. That slide there, for those who don't understand Gaelic, is ARCU. That's the system we went with. They are, at the time, although they'd been around recruitment systems for a while, not in this guise, but in other guises, they had very much a startup mentality where they would work very closely with an organisation to improve that. So we needed a system that gave us control, but gave that control back to our managers and our hiring teams. So the different thing about our model, particularly for system engagement, is that it's management facing, it isn't recruitment facing. So we needed a system that would inspire our candidates. We needed a system that gives a rich vein of data so that would in turn allow us to start influencing some of the decisions and look at the return on investment. So ARCU offered us a tailored version of the recruitment platform that matched our needs for a system, quick and easily tailored application process, including testing and assessments, candidates self-booking for interviews, integration into social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, single sign-on. It could manage onboarding, video interviewing, in-the-moment analytics. It could parse in LinkedIn profiles, job postings through defined API, which saved us £100,000 a year overnight. Just introducing API technology, we removed an agency who were doing that on behalf of Macmillan. We could then start posting live into Twitter and live into Facebook careers. We could do campaign reporting, job board monitoring, agency monitoring, hiring reports, equal ops. The list just went on and on. So then came the big day. I remember it really, really well, because we started with an empty database. We decided that actually we wouldn't take anybody from the old world. So all the candidates at the RPO had been managing, reputationally, we thought we'll leave them behind. So what an absolutely scary day to switch a system on our career site and have no candidates at all in it. So yeah. So what does that look like in terms of data? So at the moment, we have a great picture data and its availability. We have this ability to track applicants and track where they come from. What we saw was that of the 585 hires in this 12-month period, 58% of them were coming from our own career site. That information in itself was so powerful, because we then understood how much we relied on contingency or agencies who were at the time contributing just 5%. We had 130 different job boards returned as a source of candidates. These included paid-for aggregators, but they only equated to 37% of all our hires. So of those 130 job boards, only 26 actually produced a hire. So only 11 with more than one hire. So you can imagine what that did to our job board placement strategy that we inherited from the RPO. We literally just removed job boards from that equation because it was pointless using them. And we were obviously paying for postings in all of those, some of those very boutique boards, which are quite expensive. We then analysed those roles by function area, by grade, to start formulating a resourcing strategy and look at some of the more bulk purchase credits for most of the productive job boards. What that really did is it made those account meetings with those job boards really interesting, because you went in armed with this data that told you exactly how those boards were performing. It's never easy to be in an account meeting with a job board when they say, oh yeah, all our people come through here and this job board's great. Actually, it was a performance management meeting more than anything else. So what happened in candidate experience terms? So prior to the model change, we were particularly unable to answer even the simplest of candidate queries, such as what's happening with my application. For any brand, it's embarrassing. So the change in candidate experience was really important. We use the phrase, every candidate is a potential supporter or service user. And I'm sure for others that might be a customer on a retail experience or a customer in another guise. But for us, obviously, that's about service users and potential supporters. So the experience of recruitment was really important. And there were some key changes. Just anecdotally, there's just booking interview slots online and then being able to do that, automated messages at each stage of the process. Mustn't forget the hiring manager experience in all of that as well. They've done a huge cultural shift in now owning their end-to-end process. So here's what this slide kind of just tells you some of the analytics that we now have. So we can literally see what is happening on our career site and how people are engaging with our jobs. So literally we know what is the best day to post a job. When do you think that is? Well, generally it's early morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Generally people are on a laptop or on a PC, because that's generally when they actually complete. And we could see what kind of devices people were using. So we had a mobile-enabled application process that was guided by some of the data that told us when how people were applying to us. Actually the best day to post a job is Tuesday morning. Biggest amount of traffic. So we have a fully enabled site using responsive design to ensure that we deliver a seamless candidate experience. And when they visit and choose to apply, no matter what device they're using, that works really well for us. So what was the impact of that? So as you can see from a quick look at this, at a time of absolutely huge organizational growth, we over doubled in size within 4 years. That drove down the cost per hire at a time of growth when an organization was actually doubling in size. But at the same time, and in spite of huge growth, the number of campaigns managed increased by 64%. Under the old model, that cost per hire would have tracked the upward trajectory on that growth line. To cope, the RPO would have had to at least triple its resourcing of the account, which would have led to a higher cost per hire. So temp spend down, time to hire down from 70 days under the RPO, a budget cost of nearly £1 million, down to a budget cost for advertising at £210,000. So key to that is intelligent use of media, bulk purchasing, direct post, cutting out of agency, utilising API technology, reducing reliance on consultants. So what did we do next? Simple, sounds simple, doesn't it? But it only gets really good when you're working with a great software supplier. So what we did next is recruitment market never stays still. What worked last year sometimes doesn't work this year, and job boards come and go. Candidate availability for certain roles go through a period of feast and famine, and there are generationally differences in application behaviour and career ambition. So Google Analytics was key to some of that work, and actually looking at the effectiveness of job boards that we're using, Google Analytics is actually a really key piece of information. So considering we placed around 350 adverts on The Guardian that year, that's quite a considerable amount of traffic generated by Indeed for free, if you can see that. If we again match that to hire data, you see the following, with direct being the main source of hire. So on this basis, you might consider dropping The Guardian or the third sector and relying on the free sources. However, when you look deeper at the roles hired to and concentrate, most of those were around the grade C or above at 30k plus salaries. Indeed drops right down to 6%, while the only channels to increase their share are the two paid for media. So indicating that our strategy is currently the right one for our experienced hires. And this could be generational. As the entry level and early career job seeker progress ladders, they continue to use Indeed and morph into more traditional job seekers. So what are we up to now? So obviously recruitment moves on. In the 7 years I've been here, the transformation was to take us to no insight-led approach to an obvious insight-led approach. So that gave us the freedom to then think about, well, let's think about how we future-proof Macmillan and how do we make us fit for the future. So obviously we've moved into the grad apprenticeship and internship space. We've done a lot more talking about what we do and how we do it, and our careers footprint is where it should be in terms of this sector. And we're doing some really interesting stuff. You see the grad partnership there. That's the first partnership between two charities to do graduate recruitment together, where they do a year with Macmillan and they do a year with us and then rotate over a 2-year scheme. Really successful. Shortlisted last year and runner-up in the Personnel Today Awards, and actually nominated for Graduate Scheme of the Year again by Personnel Today this year, as well as nominated by the In-House Recruitment Awards this year as well. So a great development programme in the offing. But we don't rest on our laurels. We try to move things along, specifically looking at new joiner experience, and from the point of offer, we look to enhance that bit of the experience. So we've done a great job in terms of, well, what happens when people apply and what happens when people go through a process with us and get to the point of interview and what does that interview look like. But actually, once we say well done and congratulations and shake hands, what did that experience look like? So we decided we were going to attack onboarding, and we had a digital onboarding experience platform created. It's probably the best, I would say, in the sector. It's animated, it collects data that normally happens within HR when people join, but once it transitions you through a digital offer and a digital collection of data process, it then takes you to a pre-designed, right to the area that you're joining part of the business, where it says, actually, here's a bit more information. This is where you work. This is the location. Here's a bit about data, and it gives people a real piece of information that's really valuable when they actually step over the door. But not only that, it engages managers through that experience. So at the moment a candidate is offered and accepts their offer, that the actual hiring manager is emailed automatically with all of their details, with instruction to reach out to them. So I think you'll agree, a really different feeling process, and actually a great candidate experience, probably one of the best in the sector, I would say.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. So for the next few minutes, I'm just going to finish off that end-to-end talent management and talent acquisition life cycle, and show a few tools that we are starting to work with at Macmillan. And this is where, as I said at the beginning of the call, really, was that I would really value everyone's experience that's out there to help us on our journey. We've started with looking at our talent management philosophy. And so once on board, how do we retain our talent? And many of those key foundations of talent management are already in place, as you can imagine. Our performance management framework, for example, our future conversations around development planning, external onboarding processes, as Andrew's just talked about, graduate programs. But what we realised that those talent processes and activities did not quite connect up to our new strategy, and that was our starting point and our opportunity. So what I wanted to share with you was a few of our tools that we've come up with to start that journey off, as I said. And please feel free to give me your reflections or wisdom and experience around any of the tools that we could start to use at Macmillan. So what you'll see on the screen now is our brand new strategy around talent management. As you can see, it sort of looks at, sorry, let me just go back. There you go. So our talent philosophies. I'm looking at this box in particular to begin with. So this 6 strap lines or tells us around what we wanted to take forward around our talent philosophy. So these were defined this year, brand new, in sort of from March this year. It's a discovery phase, and they were really what everyone in the organisation was telling us what we needed to define what good talent looked like in Macmillan. And I'll leave you to read those there. And then the next 3 were our foundations around what priorities we wanted to focus on, which is what I'm going to touch upon in the next few slides for you. So this was particularly about building our leadership capability at Macmillan, increasing diversity in Macmillan, and then gaining clarity on our talent, where it is and whereabouts it's needed across the organisation. And what I'm not going to touch on is the detailed plan, as you can see there, about our next 3 years in particular, but that may be for the future session. So if I could just bring to life what we're focusing on in particular, as you can see on this slide, it's about our leadership potential framework. It's about our succession management model and how we do succession planning, and then a career mapping tool for everyone to go through to understand, is there a career for them at Macmillan, and how could they perhaps connect to different parts of the organisation. Those were the 3 key areas we wanted to start to focus on, and where we've still got, we haven't launched this across the organisation yet, as I said, but it's work in progress, and we're hoping to launch this year. So the next slide is around our leadership potential, and what did that tell us? So through our discovery phase, and as I said, talking to a number of stakeholders across Macmillan, it showed us that there was 4 areas that we needed to think about, which was around think, having a holistic and long-term view, and people needed to be having that sense-making approach. It's about inspiration and being able to inspire, so connecting with others, being engaging and being inspiring. It's about doing, so having that learning mindset agility that we talk about quite often in our forum. And then the strive, so it's about people who want to progress their career as a leader and who particularly contribute, are wanting to contribute to making Macmillan successful from a leadership perspective. So not just having personal ambition, but connected to the cause as well. So how we bring that to life in our day-to-day activities would be by assessing that leadership potential if you're a line manager and taking them through this form. So as you can see at the bottom, it sort of asks you a few questions. It would say, how many does this individual show of the above skills or attributes? Not many, some of them more than others, or lots of them. Very simple across those 4 areas of our potential, and that would give us a summary of what our leadership potential capability is. So the next tool that we've come up with is about succession planning, and this is about how we can capture what succession looks like at Macmillan and whether we've got any gaps that would be appearing. So you can see this would be around suggesting we would look at positional impact, we'd look at retention risk and a replacement risk to that role. So these would be about identifying our key positions and then scoring that, as you can see on the right hand side, what risk would that role, if somebody left that role with us in the future. Well, then we would look at our bench strength and ask our line managers to capture, and I'm sure you all work with various forms like this across various organisations, it's be familiar to you, but it would be to sort of understand from each individual perspective their readiness now to do a bigger job or a different job, their readiness in 1 year and then right the way through to 5 years. And it sort of captures what their potential leadership assessment was, and also what plan of action is needed to close the gap, really. So it's a data capture within an individual to assess our bench strength. So that's another tool that we're starting to introduce into Macmillan to understand how we can attract and retain our talent once they are on board, and what we then need to do to identify any gaps that we may have. Lastly, around our career mapping tools, we're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, not just a progression upwards through the ranks at Macmillan, which is quite easy to do and quite progressive, and we see quite success in this area. So that stretch potential from one area of expertise right the way through to the end and the most senior position. But it's actually looking and connecting the organisation around the breadth of the roles that we have, so going from one directorate to another, and we really want to encourage that thinking and looking at putting in building blocks to get and to navigate across the organisation. And then, so we're also looking at it from a ground up, from a talent profiling point of view, and using the scope for growth model, as you can see the slide sort of shows. So those 3 or 4 tools I've just shared with you are work in progress, as I said, and really would value any reflections that you've got along with any questions. And sort of finishes off our insight into the Macmillan talent acquisition journey, and brings a full house round to, why we get out of bed at the end of the day, and that is, as I said, there's so much opportunity to support more people living with cancer. And you can see some facts on this last slide about our success to date.
Thanks, Dawn. So as you can see, the last slide talks very much to kind of how the organisation has not just grown, but has also matured greatly. It's gone from a place of not being so insight-led to a place where actually we're so connected in terms of acquisition and the future in terms of talent that Dawn's talked about, that we're in such a better place in terms of taking the function to where it needs to be over the next few years on this brilliant new ambition that we have in this new strategy. So Macmillan's income has increased over the past 10 years quite dramatically, even still growing more than 30 million in the last 4 years to a figure that you heard earlier on, or of just under a quarter. We're proud that at the end of 2017, we've had over 5,700 Macmillan nurse posts. It's almost 600 more than in 2016. 2016. These committed individuals support 658,000 people throughout the year. And we also had another 2,000 healthcare professional posts in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So as you can imagine, the pair of us are really proud of the things that we've been responsible for. Hope you've really enjoyed listening to some of those things. We really appreciate you. If you've got any questions, then let's have a chat. It'd be great to talk a little bit more about that, and maybe there is some of what we've done that might be really helpful to other people.
Brilliant.
So we'd like to hand over now back to Perkbox, who I think are going to talk a little bit about Perkbox.
Great, thank you both. That was a fantastic session. Definitely learnt a lot and provided a lot of insight there. We do have several questions from the audience, but we'll address those in just a moment. At Perkbox, we know that attracting and retaining staff is fundamentally important to any business. The Perkbox offering can help you attract key talent and stand out from the crowd. And I did want to show a short video of the platform in action, in case any of you are interested in finding out more on what we're about.
Perkbox is the UK's leading employee engagement platform. Using the latest technology, we help thousands of businesses attract, retain, and engage employees. Whether your workforce is office or field-based, the platform is suitable for businesses of all sizes and sectors. We've helped 7,000 businesses, including some of the UK's leading brands, attract, engage, and retain their staff. Make your employees' paychecks go further by giving them access to hundreds of different discounts and freebies. Favourites include free phone insurance, free coffee every month, and special rate cinema tickets to share with friends and family. Perkbox specialises in employee wellness and support. This includes free access to an employee support hub, offering free and confidential advice from a qualified therapist. Access to the online workout platform Box, where employees can take advantage of exercise classes in boxing, HIIT, and yoga. Everyone deserves recognition for a job well done. So bring your company values to life. Perkbox recognition. Use it to seek out and congratulate exceptional work and issue real-time rewards that suit every budget, from a free lunch to an e-voucher. Our latest feature, Perkbox Insights, is the next generation in employee engagement surveys. Easily gather and act on employee feedback in a transparent and meaningful way. You can also access Perkbox on our mobile app, so it's just as good on the go. Admins have access to a dashboard that provides real-time insights into usage and savings, helping you track engagement with the platform. By showing your staff you appreciate and value them, you'll attract employees who perform better and stick around for longer. So visit perkbox.com to download our brochure, or book in a chat with one of our engagement experts, and we'll show you how we can help your business.
Brilliant, thank you. So Dawn and Andrew, enough about us. We have had a few questions, so I wanted to move on to some Q&A with the audience. Firstly, someone's just commented saying, what a fantastic achievement at Macmillan, well done to all involved. Just thought I'd share that. But moving on to the first question, have you noticed an improvement in your turnover since you've implemented these new talent management strategies?
We have actually. We had a bit of a spike in our turnover. In our sector, the average turnover percent is at 23%, around that figure, and we sort of quite comfortable in sort of in the top area, around 17%. That's our comfortable position, we call it at Macmillan. And we saw a spike towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, increasing. We didn't quite get to the 23%, but it was uncomfortable for us, around 19%. And sort of since we've started talking to everybody about connecting across the organisation, as I said, and building those bridging programmes, increasing our secondment, enablers, we're now at 16.9, so we are moving in the right direction. So I think even early days, but we haven't quite launched all those products, as I said, yet, but early days, thumbs up, we're seeing a difference in our turnover figures, I can say.
Okay, brilliant. And Andrew, a question for you. When you introduced the digital onboarding platform for successful candidates, was it the same system as the ATS?
It was. It's an extension of our career site, but in terms of who gets to engage with that, you only get to engage with that if you are delivered an offer through that avenue. So when people apply to us, they get their very own little offer page where all our communications go to candidates. So if you get an interview, it goes there. If you make an application, it goes there. So you get a link that says, come and congratulations, well done, welcome to Macmillan, here's your offer. They can digitally sign that. At the point that they digitally sign that, that fires the email to the manager to say, reach out now and say congratulations, because they've just accepted your offer. From that point, they're transitioned to this animation that then takes them on a journey through all of Macmillan's areas around the country, but at that point also collects information from them. So all that form filling is done digitally, so they don't have to waste time when they join Macmillan by doing that.
Okay, brilliant. What's your best tips for driving traffic to your careers site?
I think it's different for different organisations, but I'd say for SME, maybe the same size as us, I think get into the detail of your career site and what it's doing and not doing for you. So Google Analytics was really helpful in understanding traffic, how long people were on the site for, what they were doing when they were on the site, how long they were dwelling for, what kind of device they were using, because that really starts to define your strategy in terms of how you might appeal to certain groups of users, really understanding in detail how your career site might be working for you. I mean, literally, we switched off 90 job boards overnight because they just were not working for us. But we would never have known that until we got into the detail of it. No, and this is not just about saving money, because sometimes we didn't save money. We spent that money. We just spent it in a different way that would work a lot better for Macmillan. So in terms of knowing that we were going to double in size, knowing that we were going to have to fill more jobs than Macmillan had ever done, we needed the budget to do that, but we needed that budget to work intelligently.
Okay, great. And another question here. Have you considered 9-grid approach for performance management? Should it be an approach in identifying gaps and setting better development plans?
We have considered the 9-pot approach, and that's probably what we've just moved away from, really. So that's why Andrew and I are sort of smiling to ourselves in our little office here. Yeah, really good thought. We have probably diluted our efforts on the 9-box grid now and moving into new territory, but it did play its part for us at a time.
Okay, great. And we have time here just for one more question. So what's your top tip for approaching senior management and proposing we move our recruitment in-house?
I think there's nothing better than a case study or a lack of information, or maybe visiting another organisation to see what's going on. And I think before we ever got into strategy development at Macmillan, I spent a lot of time with a lot of other businesses, getting out there, talking to other companies about what their process looked like. So it might sound great that it was, that this has happened at Macmillan, and it is great because this is about future-proofing Macmillan. But in terms of other organisations who were quite further down the line than I ever was at Macmillan when I joined here, go and look at what other people are doing, because that is so valuable in terms of being able to go back to a senior stakeholder like an exec director or someone like Dawn and say, this is what other organisations are doing, this is how they've mastered that, ability to be able to get out to the market in a really intelligent way. What do you think? There's nothing more powerful than information and data and research to be able to build that case.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. You've given us a wealth of information there. So really thank you for taking your time to share your thoughts with us. So yeah, goodbye everyone and have a great afternoon.
Oh, thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.